Message from Starfleet Command, top priority.
You are listening to the TrekRanks podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 182, featuring Abstract Fire. Welcome, Star Trek fans. I am Jim Moorhouse. I'm the host of the TrekRanks podcast, and tonight we are returning to our Abstract series of topics. Tonight we are taking Abstract into a little different direction. Tonight we're doing Abstract Fire, which should be a pretty broad topic to sink our teeth into. And to do that, we have two great guests tonight. First up, he is the host of Trek Live on YouTube, which has been going about as long as TrekRanks now, and he's returning for his 12th TrekRanks appearance. It's the great ranker of all the Trek, Bill Mann. Welcome back, Bill.
Thrilled to be here. Thank you for inviting me back for the 12th time. That blows me away every time I'm back. I hear that number and I'm like, wow. Yeah, this is really exciting, really cool topic because of how broad it is and how many different directions we could go in. Can't wait to get into it. Thank you for having me back.
We're going to keep having you back, and our second guest tonight is making his TrekRanks debut. He filled out our TrekRanks survey probe last summer. Finally getting him on. He's coming to us from the Scotland sector, Glasgow. It's Mr. Craig Main. Welcome, Craig.
Hi, Jim. Happy to be here. Thanks so much for inviting me.
Okay, Craig, for our first-time guest, we like to get our Trek origin story. So give me a little background. How'd you get into Trek? How long you been watching? What's your favorite series? Have you seen it all? Give us a quick snapshot.
Yeah, I thought about this for a while, and, I can't remember a time when Star Trek wasn't in my life in a big way. I suppose my earliest memory of it is my dad tell me, I want you to come and watch this episode, and it was City on the Edge of Forever.
Oh, cool.
So, if you're going to have an entry point, that's as great a one as any.
I love that. So he actually made a point to kind of show it to you.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fan as well, not to the extent I am. I think there's maybe been some times where he's regretted introducing me to it. But I was at an age where I wasn't old enough to understand a lot of the plot that was going on. But Kirk and Spock jumped through the Garden of Forever, and I wanted to go with them and never looked back since. In terms of my favourite series, I've got to say Discovery's climbing up the rankings recently. They're really knocking it out of the park with season 5. But for me, my happy place is always going to be both Deep Space Nine, which I think objectively is the best series, and Voyager, which has had my heart from the first time that I watched it. I love Voyager.
That's amazing. That is amazing. And so you've basically seen it all, I guess.
Oh yeah, I've seen it all.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that almost better than any other franchise that's out there, Trek really does offer something for everyone, especially with these new shows.
It truly does. It truly does. I mean, it did before, and now it really does with all the new shows. It's incredible. Super excited to have you on. Craig has been sending us lists forever. He's been featured on the show many times. I'm fired up to get him on. Okay, good stuff. Let's get into our TrekRanks recalibration and get into this topic.
You can recalibrate the regulators now.
Will do.
All right, the TrekRanks charter has 2 clauses. 1, we rank Trek so we can have a fun conversation about Star Trek. And 2, the ranks don't matter. We just use them as the framework to have a deep dive conversation about all the things we love about Trek. Because as Mr. Spock himself has said, our show is all about
infinite diversity in infinite combinations, symbolizing the elements that create truth and beauty.
There are no wrong answers at TrekRanks. This show is about sharing the things we love about Trek. We love it all, from TOS to TNG, straight through to Enterprise, to Kelvin Timeline, now Discovery, Picard, Strange New World, Short Treks, Lower Decks, and Prodigy. It's all fair game here on the TrekRanks podcast.
Black alert. Black alert.
And a reminder that this episode of TrekRanks is current now through the Star Trek Discovery episode Janal, the 3rd episode of Discovery's 5th season. That's 906 overall episodes of Star Trek across the past 57 and a half years. And one final reminder, we use episodes as a shorthand term, but the 13 films are always in play as well.
Hailing frequencies open.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. If you can hail me directly on Twitter, at TrekRanks or at Enterprise and Extra. and on Blue Sky at TrekRanks, and you can see our extensive rankings of all the Treks at TrekRanks.com. And don't forget to call and leave us a message with your own picks at 609-512-LLAP. That's 609-512-5527. Let's get some voicemails in, people. Okay, so to wrap it up, Bill and Craig, let everyone know how they can get a hold of you on Subspace. Bill.
You can find me on Twitter at TrekFan4387. You can find me on YouTube at Trek Live. We're on a little bit of a hiatus right now. Co-host Dan just had his second baby, so he's dealing with parenting stuff and life things. So we will be back, I would say, in the next maybe month or two. But certainly on Twitter, where I'm logging my perpetual looping rewatch of Star Trek, where I'm just getting into Enterprise currently.
I love it. In the midst of 4.0, right? Yep.
4.0, yeah.
All right, Craig, how about you? How can people get in touch with you?
You can find me on Twitter at CraigM1701.
Love it. All right, let's get into our diagnostic cycle to dig into this topic.
Computer, run a level 2 diagnostic.
So really quick for this diagnostic cycle, I'm just going to quickly define again what we mean when we do these abstract topics. It's just another weird, interesting way for us to have a cool conversation about the things we love about Trek. But don't overthink it. There's no hidden message or anything. It's just our panel choosing 5 completely abstract choices related to whatever the topic is. So this is the 8th time we've done an abstract topic, which means it's time for the roll call. We started back in episode 56 and we did top 5 shapes, which kind of opened me up to this abstract topic idea. So since shapes, we've also done abstract 3, the letter H, abstract 1, abstract silence, abstract T, and the last one we did was abstract counting. And now we're jumping into the elements for the first time with abstract fire. So that's it. Just a bunch of abstract topics that could literally mean anything to anybody, and will be a great platform to have another great conversation about Star Trek, which is what we do here at TrekRanks. Okay, let's get into our Prime Directive and see how everyone broke this one down.
Do they know about Prime Directive? They know everything I know, sir.
And you're about to know everything we know about our Prime Directive. So Bill and Craig, oh my God, Bill, we're going to start with you. How did you decide to narrow this down, if you even did that?
I really didn't. This came pretty easy. You reached out, invited me on, told me what the topic was going to be, and I had at my desk, where you'll often find me, I have a notepad, and within a couple minutes, I had 5 things written down, and they're my 5 things.
Oh my God!
I kind of went with like the first 5 things that popped into my head. They vary in what the word fire means and how it is reflected on screen. But yeah, I really wanted to stick with the fidelity of like what came to mind. What were the things that like instantly hit me and why? That's what I did. I try not to overthink these. I like going with my gut on TrekRanks.
Going with your gut. I rarely do that. I usually second guess myself over and over again. Craig, how about you? How did you try to break it down?
Yeah, well, you gave me a great topic for my podcasting debut. So again, much like Bill, a lot of them came to me pretty quickly. A lot of obvious examples, but sometimes those are the best ones. They're famous for a reason.
Yeah.
And then I thought about, just how many episodes does fire play a role, and in particular, I wanted to look at episodes where it sort of there's consequences to it, and we deal with the fallout of it.
Oh yeah.
Which you'll see as we come through some of my picks. And I just thought, are there any good puns I can come up with my 5 words in a hashtag?
That's good.
And yeah, there's just a vast amount of things to choose from, so many different meanings, and it was a great topic to sink my teeth into.
I love it. And this is a good topic for potential puns with fires. So, okay, so for me, I love this topic. I thought about all the different ways to apply it, and then as I was going through the list, I just went really small and I went really narrow. So basically my entire list are little, small, significant open flames on set. So usually in someone's quarters.
Wow. Okay.
So I avoided any big, massive pyrotechnics or someone telling someone to fire the phasers, which was really hard for me not to pick that because it's like the greatest moment in my life. And as I was doing this, I learned a new word. Brazier is spelled B-R-A-Z-I-E-R, is a metal container for burning coal or fuel or whatever. So, because a lot of these scenes include a
brazier,
where someone's burning something.
Editor's note: I was really proud of myself for learning a new word, and then I realized I'm a moron. It's pronounced brazier, not brazier, you idiot. Of course. Anyway, I mispronounced it like 5 more times, and so now I have the Merriam-Webster guy saying brazier with a little Star Trek special effects in the background instead of me being an idiot. Okay, back to the show.
All right, and then I had one caveat. My first pick I actually thought of last night, and it has nothing to do with any of that. And I made it my number one pick because when it hit me, I was like, "Oh, it's perfect! I gotta include that." So that has nothing to do with what I just said. Okay, it sounds like we're going to be all over the place with our picks here, and I love that. All right, third Ramaticon, let's get into the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
Thank you, third Ramaticon. As always, everyone will start with their 5-word summary and a hashtag to tease their pick. Then we'll each reveal our abstract fire choice and the reasons we're highlighting it. And of course, everyone will highlight an episode to associate with that pick. And after getting through 5 rounds of picks, we'll get into our secondary systems for any picks that just missed our list. And if we have any duplicate picks, make sure you listen for the Defiant Torpedoes. Fire! Okay, Bill, we're going to start with you. What's your number 5 pick for your abstract fire list?
This one's just for you.
Okay.
5 words are row, row, row your boat. Hashtag merrily, 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 merrily. Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. It's the campfire.
Fantastic. It had to be picked.
It had to be picked. Yeah, obviously your mileage may vary with Star Trek V, and I'm maybe somewhere in the middle. I don't dislike it to the extent that many do, but it's certainly not my favorite. But I do appreciate that little portion of it. I think it's a really neat little window where we get to just kind of hang out with them. Kirk, Spock, and McCoy kind of talking about life, talking about their friendship. I think it stands out. It's kind of a unique scene in that respect. And nothing's really kicked off yet. There's not a whole lot of jeopardy. And you know, in the life of the film series, you don't get a ton of that. And I've always responded to that scene on that level. That's like the closest you get to just hanging out and doing the kinds of things you'd want to do if you could live in that world for a brief stretch of time. And I think the actors' chemistry and their relationship, you know, on and off screen really, you know, sings in that moment, literally. And it works for me. The movie doesn't necessarily maintain that success for me as it gets going. You know, I don't know that I've ever picked Star Trek V before here on TrekRanks. I can't imagine I have, and maybe I won't ever again. But it really did come to mind very quickly, and I didn't fight back against that. It's one of the first things that popped into my head thinking about abstract fire, and that tells me something.
Yeah, it's probably the best scene in that movie.
You know,
I love that scene. You defined it really well by saying it's the 3 of them just hanging out, and to see Kirk, Spock, McCoy together, just hanging out, shooting the shit, literally, and just kind of giving each other a hard time. That I love that. That's a great moment. It really is, and it's memorable, right? Everyone remembers that scene. So
100%.
That's a standout moment in that film. Totally works, 100%. Craig, what's your take on the campfire scene in Final Frontier?
Well, this happened earlier than I thought it would, but fire up the torpedoes. It's row, it's row your boat. Hashtag life is but a dream. The Final Frontier campfire scene.
I love it. I love it.
And I think you're absolutely right. It's the best scene not only of that movie, but it's one of the best across the whole series of the original cast movies.
Yeah.
It so perfectly encapsulates that classic Kirk, Spock, McCoy trio, because we very rarely get to see them alone in a social setting. And it's almost unique in the franchise in terms of characters being in a social setting, which is not on the holodeck and it's not on board the ship or the station or wherever else they happen to be. It's just these characters that have known each other and these actors who have known each other for decades at that point. It only works because of how well they know each other and the chemistry that they have. It's the highlight of the movie. It's the calm before the storm. It is also an incredibly funny scene.
Yeah.
It's got some of my favorite lines. What will we sing? Pack up your troubles. Are we leaving, Captain? I liked him better before he died.
That's a great line. So good.
It's so funny. Yeah, just that moment of Spock pondering the meaning of row, row, row your boat.
Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 merrily.
Come on, Spock. Why didn't you jump in?
I was trying to comprehend the meaning of the words. It's a song, you green-blooded Vulcan. You sing it. The words aren't important. What's important is that you have a good time singing it. Oh, I am sorry, Doctor. We'll be having a good time. God, I liked him better before he died.
All right. Let's call it a night. Will you?
Just
let's go to bed and let's get some sleep.
And also, in a way, it's a bit of a tragic scene, and it reverberates throughout the future of Trek, because it's also the scene which gives us the moment in which Kirk says, when I fell from that mountain, I knew I was not going to die. I was going to be okay, because I've always known I was going to die alone. And you two are with me, so I knew this was not going to be the end.
Great moment.
So the power of that moment is amazing. And it is a brilliant scene. I'm not going to argue it's the best movie, but across the series of movies, it is one of the best individual scenes, and it's one of the best character moments, I think, for the three of them.
Yeah, people say that often, and they're not wrong, that it's probably Star Trek V is probably the best Kirk, Spock, McCoy kind of trifecta movie with all the various pieces when you kind of put them together, and highlighted by this scene.
They're together almost the whole time.
Yeah,
throughout the movie.
Almost.
I mean, that's
one of the really standout things about Star Trek V. I mean, yes, it's not my favorite. It falls apart some of the structure, but yeah, this moment's great. And there's that little bit of payoff too when he gets on the bridge and he's still got his go climb a rock shirt on.
Yeah,
I love that. I love it. All right, so right off the bat, I'm so glad that this is a great way to start, because it's definitely a major fire scene in the history of Star Trek, and everyone will be thinking about it, and it will be on the show art when this episode is released. I will have it in the graphic for sure. Okay, all right, I guess that's me. So my round 5 pick. This is the first time I'm ever picking this episode. By the way, I did look it up. Final Frontier's been picked a lot on TrekRanks. You guys were the 10th and 11th picks.
Wow,
for Final Frontier. So the movies always get picked. So, all right, this is the first time I'm ever picking this episode. It has been picked before. 5 words and a hashtag. You should live a little. Hashtag life's too short to deny yourself the simple pleasures. And it is Deep Space Nine, Season 3, Episode 25, Facets. And it's the open flame fire as part of the Jantara. And I love this scene. And this is one of the first ones I thought of long before I watched Janal, which just dropped. This was the last episode, which is about Zantaras, and there was a open flame in that as well. So a little bit of a bonus because this is tying into that. But I was already going to pick this. I love the whole kind of concept. So what they have this little fire set up. It's like a triangle railing around like this brazier flat circle base for the fire, which is actually filled with mud from the symbiont pools, and I never realized that until I rewatched it. And there's actually a scene where they show Dax pouring the mud. It's kind of this thick, fluid mud around the fire. I had no idea. So, but that was when I was researching. I was already going to pick this. So, and the fire is basically in every different Jantara scene. There's a lot of them. Cliff Bowles, the director, he does a great job of kind of having the flames light the actors' faces. It's really cool. It's really cool. And one of the best moments, of course, is my 5 words and the hashtags when Tarius is Julian is talking about his short life and he's living life on the edge and he's running his hand through the flame.
Maybe you should go easy on those Tarius. Julian was just telling me the other day he started to watch what he eats.
Well, you should tell your friend to live a little. Life's too short to deprive yourself of the simple pleasures. I should know.
You didn't exactly deprive yourself.
No. But my life was too short.
And it's just a really cool shot. So I love it. Facets. Bill, what's your take?
Want to rewatch Facets just for the mud. I want to say I've never noticed that. That's really cool. No. Really cool. I think, just like we saw with Janal, the conceit to have like the regular actors play either possessed or different versions of their, like that's a recurring concept that's been in Star Trek forever, since the beginning.
Yep.
And this is one of my favorite ways to do it, because there's a purpose to it. It's not just giving those actors something else to do. It's reflecting back on Jadzia, or Dax, really. And we're learning a lot. I mean, we learn a lot about Dax in Facets. I mean, I think you hear a lot over the course of those first 3 seasons about these previous hosts, a lot of Curzon talk, and occasionally she'll throw in, one of those other folks. But getting to actually meet them in that unique way, I think really helps to flesh out Jadzia's character, Dax's character, and it's one of my favorite versions of that kind of Star Trek story that gives those opportunities. And Janal does some really cool things with it too. Following up on it, really Discovery has broadly, I think, with their Trill stuff and Forget Me Not and all of the Adira Gray stories that have been running. I think they've used that Gentara idea going back to Facets really well. So it's endured and continues to factor into the continuity and the canon.
Yeah, and by the way, they use it in Field of Fire.
Yes,
yep. Right. So, Craig, what is your take on Facets?
Oh, I love Facets. It's a genius script. And it's a genius idea because, I mean, we've had Jadzia dropping all of these references over the first 3 years of these experiences of all the previous hosts and bringing them into whatever the situation is. And just the casting and getting to see the actors take on these different roles. Colin Meaney as the quite nervous Tarius.
Yeah. Right.
Nana as, I want to say Audred.
She was wait, Miles was Tobin. Julian was Tarius, and is it Audred? I think it's Audred, right? Or something?
Audred, yeah.
Audred, yeah. And Armin brushing her hair.
Oh, God.
But I've got to say, and I still have nightmares about Avery going full Hannibal Lecter as Gerard in that episode. It's a scary moment. But no, I love that episode. Dax is one of my favorite characters in all of Star Trek, Jadzia in particular. And just getting to explore all these new sides of a character.
Love it.
Is great.
And I will tell you, since you kind of brought it up, Bill, we have it's actually on my short list in like the next 5 or 6 topics I'm thinking about this summer. We are doing top 5 psychic transfers, but we're gonna call it Faltor Pandemonium.
I love it.
For all those in the know, it's Faltor Pandemonium. Okay, let's go to round 4. Bill, what's your number 4 pick?
All my 5 words are quotes from these episodes.
I love
it. This one is Geordi, this wall is hot. And it's a hashtag small green fire, which is
so good.
Disaster from TNG. This really stands out to me, first of all, as being, a kid growing up in the 90s.
Just cool.
It's just cool. Seeing a green fire was like, what is this? This is like, that's a plasma fire. Love that. And I think the other thing that really stands out to me is you don't get very many Beverly Crusher, Geordi LaForge kind of shared screen together doing a thing opportunity. Like, that's just not one of the character pairings you see very often in TNG. So it stands out for that to me. And there's some just really deeply rooted childhood memories with the way that scene plays out, the way that those two handle it. And really, it's the green fire. I think that is just really baked into my head as like an early Star Trek memory. I was 5 years old in season 5, and I always feel like I've been trying really hard lately to kind of think back to when were the first things, because Star Trek's been there since I was beyond conscious. I don't have, like Craig did, an episode to point to, that's where I started. And the best I can kind of handle it is that late season 4, early season 5 TNG. I can vaguely remember walking into rooms and seeing it on TV. And Disaster feels like one of those episodes. And that moment would be something that would have drawn my attention for sure. So
the green plasma fire is just cool, man. It's such a great pick. I did not think of it, but I love how it stands out and is so memorable and so unique and so Star Trek. Craig, what's your take on that scene in Disaster?
I mean, who doesn't love Disaster? It's one of my favorite episodes of TNG. I'm a big fan of a disaster movie, you know, Poseidon Adventure, Towering Inferno, anything like that. And it's such a great love letter to them. Fire, exactly. And, you know, you're right. It's a great episode for giving us those rare pairings. You know, Bev and Geordi, you've got Troy and Ro up on the bridge. You've got Riker and Data's head.
That's right.
You've got Worf, the midwife. But yeah, that scene in particular is great. And I think I remember seeing the behind the scenes photos and how they did that, you know, quite simple, just filming it from above the model and just having those barrels just drop out. And you think, oh, that's how they did that. But yeah, no, it's a great pick and a great episode.
Yeah, that's making me think of all the plasma fires I didn't consider. So, by the way, I did have Data's head in my top 5 scenes in a Jeffries too. So, okay, way back on episode 38. Okay, Craig, what's your number 4 pick?
Okay, so I was going to have this as my first pick because I wanted to start, you know, first appearance. I wanted to bring out the big guns, and it's you ruined our whole summer. Hashtag Mr. Worf, fire. And it's the cliffhanger ending of the best of both worlds.
Yes.
The 5 words coming from the famous Patrick Stewart story about being on hiatus during seasons 3 and 4 and pulling up at a set of traffic lights, and the family that pulled up beside him rolled down the window and, you know, shouted that you had ruined our whole summer.
That's so good.
You know, I wasn't born at that point. I'm not going to claim to remember having to wait that long. I can't imagine having to wait that long. I just, you know, hit play the next episode on Netflix or stick the next video, and so I didn't have to wait. But, you know, it's one of Riker's finest moments in the history of that character, not just in TNG, up to, you know, his latest appearances now. The power that he gives to that one syllable, and he delivers it so calmly at the end of that scene. I rewatched it before we came on, and, you know, it's up there. There's some great deliveries of that line throughout the franchise. You know, you've got Sulu in The Undiscovered Country, you've got Nero in the trailer for 2009.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say that Best of the Both Worlds is the best 2-parter, in my opinion, but in terms of a cliffhanger, it is the best, without question. Not just in Star Trek, I think in TV, full stop. That moment is amazing. And, you know, the fallout of it, you know, you had to wait that long.
Yeah.
Wonder how much truth there is to the rumours that Patrick Stewart was potentially going to be leaving, or if that's just been apocryphal over the years, because, you know, it's a good story.
Right.
And I love the behind the scenes of Michael Piller also leaving at the end of season 3, thinking I'm not going to have to resolve this, so I can do what I want. And then being called back and having to come up with a solution for it.
Those are great stories.
It's a wonderful, wonderful cliffhanger. And it's that performance, you know, in those scenes, you know, in these cliffhangers, you know, music can do a lot of heavy lifting in those scenes. Not here, it only adds to it.
Yeah.
And just the whole build up to it, you know, because it's not just his performance in that scene. You've got Worf is devastated. He comes back on the bridge and says he is a Borg. You know, Beverly wants to go back and save him. She's saying that, you know, just get him back and I can help him. Even Shelby wants to pause and contact Starfleet at that point. You know, we went through the full first part where she comes in, this hot-headed go-getter who basically wants to get in that big chair. And even she's a bit taken aback, saying, no, let's take a minute, let's contact Admiral Hands and let's contact Starfleet and get some advice. But it's just the power of that one line. And as I say, there's some great deliveries of that line. There's some great examples of it in all of Trek, but there's nothing can touch those 3 words at the end of that episode.
Mr. Worf, fire.
Well, I am old enough to have lived through it, and it was rough, people. It was rough, but it was also exciting.
I can imagine.
It was just so cool. Bill, what is your take on this classic that had to be on this topic?
Craig, I love that you put the spotlight on, Riker's character moments and the way that it reflects on him, because I really feel like, especially growing up as a kid and loving that episode, like it was easy to kind of fall into it's about Picard because the Jeopardy is about Picard, from his perspective, and it's about the Borg and all these things. But as I get older and I watch it over and over again, it's Riker. Like it is such a great look at like having self-confidence and finding your path and knowing where you're supposed to be and finding it in yourself to do what needs to be done. And it's I think you're right, the way that it builds to that moment as the rest of the crew is like looking for other options and trying to find a way out of having to do that, and Riker's like, nope, like this is what has to happen, and he doesn't hesitate, and he delivers that line like it is, the gravity of it is all there. But the confidence that he's been kind of struggling with about where he belongs and what he needs to be doing is there too when push comes to shove and it's time. And that's what the episode's about. That's what the whole thing is the whole time for both parts. And that's why I think The Best of Both Worlds is such a classic.
Yeah. All timer. Great moment. So impactful. And one of those always remembered moments of Star Trek forever and ever. So love it. Okay, let's close out round 4. I have another small one. Here we go. And this, I did not plan this. I thought of both of these. And turns out this episode aired right before Facets. So they're back to back. This is Deep Space Nine Season 3, Episode 24. And my 5 words in a hashtag, Duranya, Lamp for the Dead, hashtag Kira trolled by Kai Wynn. And this is from Shakar, and this is the opener. And I always remember this. It's not the cold open, but it's right at the beginning. And it's just one of those defining, frustrating, annoying scenes for Kai Wynn. She comes in to ask Kira for a favor, and Kira's praying for Bareil, who had died a while back. And she's got this open flame in her room. Again, a brazier that's holding the fire. And I love this moment from Kai Wynn and Kira, because she walks in and right away she's like, "Oh, you're still mourning the death of Minister Caleb." And she's like, "It's for Vedic Bareil." And she right away is like, "Oh, it's been 3 months since he left to walk with the prophets. You must have cared for him deeply." It's so infuriating. So infuriating. Drives me crazy. And then they go on to this little tit for tat back and forth about how the last time we saw Wynn and Bareil was when Bareil died, and Wynn was taking all the credit for the work they were doing, and Kira's letting her have it, and then she says again, Wynn says, "As someone who loved him, I'm surprised you didn't know he didn't want the credit for all the stuff that I took credit for." I mean, it's just so great. Oh my God, I love it. Anyway, these are the scenes as I started narrowing down and wanting to go smaller, I was like, there's all these cool scenes where there's like someone in production had to set up a fire, and it's not easy. When you set up a fire around all that equipment and stuff, there's like all these safety protocols and things that have to be in place. And I know they yell beforehand, like, "Fire on the set in this shot," and then, action. And then everyone knows that there's fire. And it's, I really like these scenes. So there you go. Shakar, it's called the Duranya. I love this. I had Jintara, the Trill word. Now we've got Duranya in a Bajoran word here, the lamp for the dead. Bill, what's your take?
So cool. I think I would have never picked it. It never would have come to mind. But now that you described the scene and I'm thinking back to it, man, that's a killer scene for Louis Fletcher. Really I think if you're thinking like, what are the best episodes for Wynn? Shakar's up there for sure. Like the conniving,
for sure.
The viciousness of her plotting is really on full display there, and I think that it really does set the tone right out of the gate in that scene, where she is very consciously poking and prodding Kira and baiting her.
It's all there in the line. "You must have cared for him deeply." She's the worst.
She is. So that's a great choice.
"I'm not here to see the emissary. I'm here to see you."
Me?
"Yes, child. Have you suffered a recent loss? Or are you still mourning the death of Minister Caleb?"
It's for Vedic Bareil. Actually.
It's been 3 months since Bareil left us to walk with the prophets. You must have cared for him deeply.
I loved him.
As did I.
Is that why you never mention Bareil's name when you talk about your peace treaty with Cardassia? As I recall, he's the one who negotiated it.
Bareil saw himself as simply carrying out the will of the prophets. To him, achieving peace with Cardassia was its own reward. He never wanted fame or glory for what he did. As someone who loved him, I'm surprised you didn't know that.
Craig, what's your take on this one?
I can't say that I remember the episode in great detail. And the temporal prime directive means that I can't say too much about Kai-1 right now. More on that later.
All right, I like that.
But the idea of it is another one of it's a brilliant bit of writing. And the Bajoran faith plays such a major role across all of that series. And, showing these rituals of how they deal with death and remembrance. And, the Kira Bareil relationship is nobody's favourite, but, Wynn knew exactly what she was doing and she was playing on that, as she so masterfully did. I mean, I'm still not convinced that she wasn't somehow involved. There's conspiracy theories out there that she may have been involved in Bareil's passing, more than she knew, more than she let on. But I do remember that scene. And their performances, and it's a beautiful moment. And I love you talking about the fires on the sets, because there was an article that came out just recently off the back of Terry Farrell making some comments on the Delta Flyers podcast about how more than any other series she felt that the DS9 cast were a bunch of pyromaniacs and that there was more fire on that show than pretty much any other.
There's so much. There is.
It's you don't think of it until someone makes a comment like that. But there was a lot of fire in Deep Space Nine.
Well, I'll tell you, it's not my last Deep Space Nine pick. So I've already got two. I'm gonna have a third. All right, let's go to the soup round.
Are you gonna put that in my soup?
What do you got, Bill?
My 5 words and hashtag are can only access it outside. Hashtag Big Green Fire. And it is in Enterprises The Forgotten. It's the walking on the hull to put out a breached warp plasma conduit fire. So it's another plasma fire. It's kind of like an extension of what they did in Minefield in season 2 with the walking on the hull and the EV suits. But I think this is I like Minefield, but I think this is more effective. It's more in a short spurt. It's tense. Where Minefield's much more, character development, conversations, kind of slow moving. This is like rapid fire, a high pressure situation right at the tail end of season 3 when the pressure's on from that. One of my favorite stretches of Star Trek anywhere is that last 7 episodes maybe of season 3 of Enterprise, and this is like right smack dab in the middle of that.
So good.
I think it's another one of those memorable images that big green fire coming out of the hull of the ship that is increasingly a problem. I think they do a really nice job on the production side, selling the heat and people burning up and the metal melting and they can't open the panels, and it's a really good scene and a otherwise pretty quiet, emotionally charged kind of episode. That's kind of the one point where there's a little bit of a heightened sense of imminent tension.
Well, it's easy to forget that you think of The Forgotten and you think of Trip writing the letter.
Yeah, exactly.
Of Trip versus Degra, right? Because they're having a lot of confrontation. And you forget that this shit is cool.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about the green plasma fire and Disaster was cool, this is really cool. And these effects, they stand the test of time. It looks
It really does look good.
It really, really looks good. I love this pick and this thought. Coolest plasma fire ever. Craig, what's your take?
Yeah, I rewatched this indie arc a few months ago, and it's a terrific episode. It's some of Connor Trinneer's finest work in the series. It's when he finally deals with the loss of his sister in a way that he doesn't really for the first half of the season. But once we get into the back half, and that fire and the fact that it leads to the death of a crewman an ensign or lieutenant or something like that, which is sort of the catalyst for the rest of the episode and his journey through it. The loss and, writing the letter about what a fine young woman this ensign was. Like you're really talking about your sister here, Trip.
Yeah.
It is a great run of episodes, as you say. It's certainly a highlight of the back half of that season, of which there are many. But yeah, that one, in the same way that Best of Both Worlds is all about Riker and his performance and Frakes as an actor, as I say, this is one of Connor Trinneer's best episodes, for my money, without question.
I love that. He is so good in it. I'm going to, I also, Bill, you saying Minefields a little bit, got that same vibe where they're on the surface. I just thought I'm going to have to start thinking in these terms. There's a trilogy of 3 awesome on the surface scenes in the EV suits. Minefield, and then is the first one. The third one is The Forgotten. And then there's this awesome scene that you forget about in Exile. Where they land the shuttle and the
sphere.
And the thruster goes off and the shuttle starts floating into space. They have to shoot it and it falls down. It's so great. Those 3 scenes are fantastic. That's a nice little trilogy of scenes on the surface in EB suits. Okay, on the ships or spheres anyway. Okay, here we go. Round 3. Craig, what's your super round pick?
Okay, so I used this one earlier. It's Costa Mojin Come to Me, hashtag Bye Bye Kai.
All right,
and
she gets her just desserts. Yes,
it is What You Leave Behind, and in particular, I'm choosing the death of Kai Wynn.
Yes, the fire cave.
Yeah,
that whole scene is amazing. The ending of Deep Space Nine is one of those. It's terrific as it is. I would love to see it done with the modern day production values. Can you imagine the look of the fire caves with the VR wall?
Man.
What that would give you. But the fact is, it doesn't need it. The performances of those 3 actors probably just standing in a platform somewhere with all of this put in VFX afterwards. Her death, is Ducat's final act of evil. Then I'll stop you. Are you still here? And the fact that she's sort of, in a way, Louise Fletcher does not get enough credit. I know she gets a lot of credit. She does not get anywhere near enough credit as she deserves for being one of the best villains that Star Trek has ever produced. She spent 7 years crafting a top-tier villain. Her story couldn't have ended any other way that I can think of. She gave so much to that series, and in a way, again, I rewatched the scene before we started, and she does have this last moment change of heart. She shouts out to Sisko, I'm going to. Okay, so no, you know what, Ducat, you left me to die here. I'm going to stop you. Emissary the book, and Ducat makes it disappear. But what that does is that's what gives Sisko his opening to run at Ducat and knock him off the cliff.
Right.
Because I hate to say it, but if she hadn't done that, I don't think Sisko was going to win that fight. I think that episode would have ended a different way. But it's just the visuals of it at the time were great. And I mean, she lets out a scream that Jack Quaid would be proud of, that Boimler would be proud of. As Ducat just sends that whirlwind of fire up, and it just goes and envelops her, and it's an end to one of the greatest characters in one of the greatest sci-fi series of all time. It is a terrific scene, and she is terrific in it, as she is in every other scene that she's in across those 7 years.
I love it. I mean, especially after my pick, getting her see her just desserts, and yeah, she may have helped Sisko, but she wasn't. She was still gonna be bad. Hey, gotta hate her.
Oh yeah, she still deserved it. Don't get me wrong. But,
yeah, of course. It's not like she was gonna turn over a new leaf. If it had worked, then she survived. Bill, what's your take on the fire caves in this scene?
It always kind of hits me when I watch the finale of Deep Space Nine that, like, just the way it's kind of structured, you kind of deal with the end of the war, the big battle on that front. And you almost forget that the Ducat Kai Wynn thing is kind of still floating around out there. They kind of lull you a little bit. I think there's a little bit in the early part of What You Leave Behind, but it's really heavy in that kind of early run of that stretch of 9 or 10 episodes or whatever. But I feel like in the last 2 or 3 of them, it kind of goes away and it's just kind of eased back in the finale. So it like the gravity of like we're kind of ending with this conflict with Cisco and Wynn and Ducat, these 3 characters who've pretty much been there since the beginning. Wynn at the end of season 1, but Ducat, all the way back to Emissary, kind of having that be the sort of last hurdle that costs Cisco is really great. And everything you guys said about watching Wynn get her get justice is certainly satisfying after 7 years of living with her.
So good. All right, Fire Caves. I figured that was another one on my secondary system. So glad it got picked. All right, let's close out the soup round. My round 3 pick, and this is the first time this episode has ever been picked on TrekRanks. Kind of amazing. So here we go. 5 words and a hashtag. Sing for all to hear. Hashtag we are Klingon. And there is so much fire in this episode. This is TNG Season 6, Episode 23, Rightful Heir.
Wow.
And it starts with Worf setting a little fire in his quarters. He's got a little brazier in his quarters, and he's got a fire going. And he is summoning a vision of Kahless, which I'm just realizing now. So I had a Trill ceremony, a Bajoran ceremony. Now we have a Klingon vision quest. I did not realize I was doing that back to back to back. So much fire in this episode. There are little open flame. Once they get to Borath, this is the one where Kahless comes back. Once they get to Borath, there are candles and open flames and torches everywhere in this episode throughout. And I just love that it starts with this cool little scene where Worf doesn't show up on the bridge and Riker goes and investigates, and Worf's kind of hunched over this little fire in his quarters and he's trying to summon the vision of Kahless. I love it. Lots of stuff going on in this episode. I rewatched it today and I really enjoyed it. It's not that high on TrekRanks, but it was really kind of cool rewatch. Bill, what's your take on all the fire in Rightful Heir?
I'm hung up on this is 200 and how many episodes of TrekRanks?
It's 182.
182. That's wild.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think when I think back, like, is there more like on-set fire in Rightful Heir than in any other episode?
It could be. It could be the most.
It's like constantly there. Feels like for at least a big chunk of it when they're on Borath and Worf's quarters at the beginning. There's a lot of fire. And it's I think it is. It always kind of surprises me. I never really think of it as like one of my favorite episodes of TNG, but when I hit it and like rewatches it holds up pretty well. It's a good little workman-like episode from the Klingon standpoint. It's not as flashy as some others, but it really dives into some heavy stuff and handles it really well and gives Michael Dorn some cool things, and Robert O'Reilly, really great material.
He's so good in this one.
Yeah, he's really great. So I love Rightful Heir, and I love all of the fire in Rightful Heir.
I had one of those moments rewatching this where there's a scene with Gowron and Worf, and they're just communicating really well, and they're kind of going at it, but the mutual respect's there, and it always hits me. Anytime I see a scene like that, I'm like, Worf kills you, man. He kills you. It's amazing to me that that's where it ended up. I love that. Craig, what's your take on all the fire in Rightful Heir?
I just love that the whole thing stems from Worf leaps in.
Right, yes. Right. He's like, doesn't show up.
He loved it so much that they brought it back at the start of Insurrection. I don't know how they do it on Deep Space Nine, but on the Enterprise, we report for duty on time.
So good.
Again, it ties into the previous pick with the Bajorans and their religious ceremonies. If anyone's going to rival them for that, it's the Klingons, and it's Worf, who's one of the most deeply spiritual characters across all of Star Trek.
Yeah.
It's one of those plot threads that's introduced, the KLS clone, which they probably could have done more with in future. There's references to it in Sword of Kahless, for example, in DS9. But I agree, just for that one episode, it's not going to be in my top 10 list, but it's got some fun performances in it. I think Kevin Conway, I want to say, is the guy that played KLS.
Yeah.
It's just, it feels like it should be a bigger moment. This is the Klingon god, basically.
They reference Kahless They reference Kalos about as many times as they reference the Warp 5 speed limit in those last 2 seasons.
Yeah, that is the thing. I mean, I get it, it's 90s episodic television, but
exactly.
yeah, no, it's a funny episode. I don't have much more to say about it.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of fire. A lot of fire.
A lot of fire, yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to think of an episode with more fire, and I'm thinking about maybe one of those early Discovery season 4 episodes where those flames are shooting out of the.
Oh, they're always on fire.
I love those fire extinguishers just shooting in the back of the bridge every time something rocks the ship. Ah, so good. Okay, God, I love Star Trek. All right, let's go to round 2. Bill, what's your pick?
My 5 words in the hashtag are coming back with severe burns. Hashtag Janeway won't stop. And it's in Year of Hell Part 2 with the fire in the deflector control room.
Oh, that's a brilliant pick. Oh, what a moment. What a moment.
I feel like Year of Hell is such the, like, it gets knocked around a bit for being the reset button and not having, a lasting impact. But I always say, like, it has a lasting impact on me watching it, seeing how far Janeway will go and how she is obsessively compelled to do what it takes. And that act of running into that burning deflector control room, knowing what's going to happen and getting the job done. And it really calls back to me, like, Janeway really feels like an answer to or an echo of Kirk, the sort of symbiotic relationship with the ship, the obsessive care for the ship, that inseparable quality that captain and ship have is really on display in those 7 years on Voyager. And this feels like the kind of maybe the peak moment right in the middle of the show where it's 2 hours of just watching her go through literal hell to try to get one more day out of the ship and to get a little closer to the other end of the tunnel. And I just feel like in a show that's really about her and her commitment to being a leader on the ship and her style of leadership and being a mother, like without actual children there, but mothering that crew home. That's sort of the peak examination of just how far she'll go. And I feel like in that peak of an episode, that's the individual, like, kind of, besides ramming the ship into the Krenim time ship, I guess, and taking a chance that would do the job. I feel like that's about as far as she'll go. He's running into that room.
That scene has so much agency with it, right? It just feels brutal. I mean, the doctor's just like, you are not going to do this. And she's like, I'm going to do it. I mean, it is the whole setup, the whole scene, the damage. It's really, really, really well done. This is an awesome pick. I love it. Craig, what's your take?
Bill, have you been reading my notes?
I have not.
Fired up those torpedoes. My next pick is Are You Testing Me, Voyager? Hashtag Be Kind. And it's Janeway going into deflector control in Year of Hell.
Oh, it's so good. Such a great pick.
Which I spoke earlier about Best of Both Worlds being the best cliffhanger. For my money, Year of Hell is the best 2-parter in Star Trek. It's certainly my favourite. Yeah, you've already spoke about a lot of the notes that I'd made myself. Just the lengths that woman will go to save her ship in any timeline, in any reality, with no regard for her own safety. She picks up a bit of bulkhead in the corridor and uses it as a shield and just walks into that room. I thought about her symbiotic relationship with Voyager that you mentioned, which you're right, no other captain since Kirk, or since for that matter, is shown to be as close to their ship. I mean, she speaks to Voyager on a regular basis, and I don't mean talking to the computer. And the connection that she feels with it, you get to the end of that season in hope and fear, and if there's a way to bring Voyager along for the ride, I'm all for it, when they think that they're going to be going back on the Dauntless. But I spoke at the beginning how it was the consequences and the fallout from the fires which I found really interesting. And to me, it's the scene which immediately follows it, which is her facing off with the Doctor, who tries to relieve her and gets threatened with deactivation for his trouble. I mean, that relationship between the Doctor and Janeway again, I think it's underrated as a whole in terms of the great Star Trek parents. Everyone talks about Janeway and Chakotay and Janeway and Seven, understandably, but the relationship between the two of them is every bit as in-depth and interesting as any other one on that show. They match each other step for step. She literally tells him, before I give up command, you'll have to shoot me. And, there's a moment, I think he might actually do that to save her from herself. There's so many wonderful moments between them, and you just look at the growth of that relationship from the early scenes in season 1, where she views him as a light bulb and just this tool to be turned on and off, all the way up to present day Trek. And I can't wait to see them reunite in Prodigy in season 2.
God, that's right. Yeah, we have that coming.
I just love that relationship, and obviously a huge part of that is the real life relationship, and the closeness with Kate Mulgrew and Bob Picardo, the friendship that they have, and it's another one it shines through on the screen.
Yeah, you guys both made so many good points. I mean, that's a great one about Janeway and the Doctor and their relationship and that moment where they're confronting each other. And then, Bill, you said, I'm going to remember this because it may be a reset button episode at the end, but the Janeway stuff's not a reset. That's stuff you learn and experience and live with Janeway, and it doesn't go away. That's so good.
Having just finished it and rewatched the whole show, Voyager's freaking great. It really holds up well, it's maybe growing up with it on and being brave enough to read about it on the internet, like we read about Star Trek now, and being exposed to people not liking it in real time as it was airing, just kind of trained me to think, people don't love it. People do love it, and they should, because it's freaking great, and it gets better every time I go back to it. It's everything you said, Craig, about the Doctor and Janeway all day long. I agree.
It is awesome. I love it. And that's every Star Trek show when it's airing.
Yeah, so for sure. I know.
But I should actually know it's honestly, it's every one of them. TNG did it. Deep Space Nine had it. Voyager had it. Enterprise certainly had it.
Yeah.
And every season in this new era has for sure had it. So welcome to Star Trek. Okay, let's close out round 2. This is great. We have another character on fire. It's like with Janeway, but it's for comedic effect. So, and you're going to know it when I say my 5 words and a hashtag. So here we go. Quark's on fire. Trip ruined. Hashtag Ferengi bugs. And it's the Jem'Hadar Deep Space Nine Season 2 Episode 26.
Oh, I love it.
I love this. This is one of the first ones I thought of. This whole scene is perfection. This is Quark trying to pick the bugs out of his food. His sleeve catches on fire when it's another campground scene. And I couldn't love it anymore. It will never not. This scene just energizes me. Every time I watch it, makes me laugh. It gets me excited, and it's funny, but it's also realistic, and it's surprising, and it's just a freaking great scene. It sets up kind of the episode. It's Quark at his best, always kind of adding a little comedic flavor, but also being true to his character and being real and ripping on everything around him. I love it. It's why DS9 works so well. So Quark, his arm is on fire in the Jem'Hadar at a campground with the Ciscos and Nog. Bill, what's your take?
I love it. I would have never thought of it, even though this is like in one of it's an all-timer episode of Deep Space Nine, and a great moment in it. Not only like the comedic effect of the fire on Quark, but I think the scene immediately following it with Cisco and Quark kind of going at it.
Yeah,
and really Quark kind of giving it to Cisco.
Absolutely,
is phenomenal. Star Trek. It's my favorite thing about the Jem'Hadar. I think that conversation between the two of them, and the way that the episode is brave enough to really treat Quark as like equally smart and insightful and aware of the dynamic, and not making him a lesser than character who Cisco is kind of lecturing to and right about. That it goes both ways, and
it does.
I love that Quark gives it back to Cisco and is right about a lot of what he says, and I think that's a big important moment for Cisco and for Quark, in an episode that gets a lot of love for being the episode that kind of introduces the Dominion and the Jem'Hadar kind of in earnest, and for all the big picture stuff that it does for Deep Space Nine. But the stuff I love even more about it is that the relationship between Sisko and Quark, and how it changes both of them for the next 5 seasons.
Yeah, you're exactly right. That's what I always say about Quark. Like, he's there, he's comedic, he's funny, but there's always a
He's not the village idiot.
gravitas.
Like he's
not the butt of the joke.
Right.
There's gravitas to the humor, and it always ends up with a little bit of a payoff. So I love it. I just realized there's another cool fire in this episode. R.I.P. Odyssey. Boom. Craig, what is your
It's still too soon.
Yeah, too soon. Sorry. What's his name? Keo. Captain Keo. Sorry, man.
Captain Keo.
Craig, what's your take on Quark on fire?
Armin Shimmerman is a comedic genius. I mean, we all know this from his performances, and yet he is an incredible actor. Which, it's almost redundant to say that about the Trek actors, but he really is. And the way he switches from the comedy of that scene to the next scene where Quark so perfectly deconstructs humanity and Starfleet and the pomposity of it. And as you say, he's absolutely right. I love, it's a Trek trope that started with Spock, and there's so many other examples of the outsider commenting on it. And, knowing that Starfleet is not the be-all and end-all. That is a terrific scene.
Yeah. I mean,
between him and Sisko. It's one of the best scenes. It's one of his best scenes in the series, I think. Quark.
It might be one of the earliest examples of that, where there's like this I guess it happened in the Maquis earlier that season with the Easy to Be a Saint in Paradise. But this is when Deep Space Nine started getting into that. Hey, utopia's not that easy to define. Here's why.
You're right there, but I think what adds to it is the fact that it's coming from an outsider. I mean, I love the scene in the Maquis as well, but that it's still coming from Sisko. It's still coming from somebody within Starfleet.
Yeah.
And you just sort of see how taken aback Sisko is. I don't think Quark's ever really stood up to him in that way before. But yeah, it's a terrific scene. And as you say, it's another one of the many great campfire scenes in Deep Space Nine and in Star Trek. We'll go into more of those in the secondary systems. There are some great ones there.
I should have just done top 5 campfires.
You could. That's a whole different conversation.
Well, we already did scenes in a cave and scenes on a cliff. We have enough of that. Okay. All right, let's go to round 1. Bill, what is your number 1 abstract fire choice?
Begin round 1.
So my 5 words kind of takes place maybe like 15 seconds or so after the actual moment that really pops into my head. My 5 words are target that explosion and fire, and it's hashtag to be or not to be. It's the Kirk standing up and fire in Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. I always say, Star Trek 6 is the first. I think it's my actual first, but it's certainly my first memory of being in a movie theater, and I was 4 and a half, and completely in love with Star Trek already, and seeing those characters in Star Trek 6, I was in love with it, and the way that scene builds with the Enterprise just getting the complete crap beat out of it minute after minute after minute, with the score just like pounding, and the build up to that Kirk fire line with the music dropping and watching the torpedo stream across the screen looking for the bird of prey.
Where's that damn torpedo?
She's ready, Jim. Lock and load.
Fire. The satisfying jolt of energy you get from the slam. The sound design in Star Trek 6 is next level great. Like some of the best stuff in all of Star Trek. I love the sound of Star Trek 6.
To be or not to be.
Target that explosion and fire.
Fire! There's such a big bold bang to that torpedo hitting that bird of prey that brings the music back into it, and it's such a well constructed battle sequence in kind of the history of Star Trek, and it all culminates right there. And that is the first thing that popped into my head when you said abstract fire. Kirk saying fire in Star Trek 6.
I knew there would be a bunch of thoughts on characters saying fire, and that is a great one. I did not think of it. It is such a good one. So dynamic. I love it. Craig, what's your take?
Oh, it's a terrific scene and a terrific movie. And it's great because there's so many nods to it in later series and later movies. I mean,
right.
It's almost the exact same demise that Lursa and Betor get a few years later.
Right.
In Generations, with that solitary torpedo just blasting them, sending them to Stovacor. And Christopher Plummer chewing every bit of scenery that's available and spinning in his chair, which of course his daughter did to equally great effect in Picard, Amanda Plummer. But yeah, that whole scene, and going back to just that one syllable and the different deliveries of it, Kirk's is almost a whisper at that point, and then you've got Captain Sulu on the Excelsior.
Oh, yeah.
Getting to deliver that line.
God, you're right. So many just in that moment, just in that scene alone, there's like 3 or 4 lifelines.
Fire.
Where it continues. They pull story elements out. Amazing.
And, Shatner's on the Enterprise. Are we sure he meant the Klingons?
Yeah, right. So good. All right, that is great. Another fire command. Okay, Craig, what is your top abstract fire choice?
Okay, bear with me because this one is pretty abstract. Okay, so 5 words in a hashtag. The Dreamer in the Dream, hashtag it's real. And this is Benny Russell getting fired in Far Beyond the Stars.
So good, yes! This is what we're looking for.
Well done.
This is the abstract round. I love this. So good. So good.
I'm stretching it with the theme, but there's no doubt about it. It is one of the best acted, written, directed, most important scenes, not just in Star Trek history, in television history. It's one of those, it transcends Star Trek, it transcends science fiction. It makes you question yourself. I mean, I can't begin to comprehend the experiences.
No.
No one needs to hear my comments on that. No one needs to hear the white guy. But, if you are not deeply moved by Avery's performance in that scene, you are not human. And it amazes me that he directed it as well.
Right.
And to think the amount of takes it probably took, and how difficult it was. Again, I watched What We Left Behind recently, and one of the most interesting stories that came out of it to me is Nana Visitor talks about filming that scene, and she has never seen an actor be so in a moment to the point that she was concerned about him. And when he got down and hit the floor and he is breaking down, she thought, I don't know if he's going to get back up. I don't know if Avery is okay.
Well, you can't fire me. I quit. To hell with you, and to hell with Stone!
Try to stay calm, Benny.
No, I'm tired of being calm. Calm never got me a damn thing.
I'm warning you, Benny, if you don't stop this, I'm going to call the police.
You go ahead, call them! Call anybody you want. They can't do anything to me. Not anymore, and nor can any of you. Human being.
That scene is just, it's so perfectly done. It should be required viewing for anyone that watches Star Trek, for anyone that watches TV. They should play it in schools. I mean, it's one I would definitely recommend. It's maybe a bit too heavy to introduce someone to Star Trek, but that scene is the culmination of quite simply one of the finest episodes of television ever written.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And this choice is so cool because it all really begins with Benny getting fired and him having to take that, knowing that getting fired is going to be the best choice so that he can fight back in that way. Oh my gosh, this is such a great pick. So abstract. Bill, what's your take?
So abstract. Now my brain's going like, what other firings, like actual firings?
Yeah, right.
Could you go with? And there's a handful. That's awesome. Yeah, that's a really cool. I never would have gone there. I never would have thought. Yeah.
Oh, no.
True.
Sorry.
I never would have thought of it, and I love it. And Far Beyond the Stars is obviously it's been covered. You did it really well. It's part of what makes Deep Space Nine special is that episode exists and that it covers that ground, and is that it takes that meta approach to like looking at science fiction and what it can do.
For sure.
and I just love it. It's one of my favorites in all of Star Trek.
This is great. Well, I'm glad you waited to round one to do your super abstract pick, because that's what I did as well when I thought of this one yesterday. So here we go. 5 words and a hashtag for my number one pick for abstract fire. What's the definition of life? Hashtag consume, grow, reproduce. And this is TNG Season 6, Episode 9, The Quality of Life, when Data asks Dr. Crusher about the definition of life. And I love this moment. Since I first saw it, I love little riddles and wordplay situations like this. And I think the writing in this season is just beautiful. It's by Naren Shankar, by the way, who's gone on to do many, many great things, directed by Jonathan Frakes this episode. And it's Data asking Dr. Crusher about the definition of life. And then after she kind of tells him, he comes back with the idea that fire fits her criteria. And it's just really, really great writing.
Well, the broadest scientific definition might be that life is what enables plants and animals to consume food, derive energy from it, grow, adapt themselves to their surroundings, and reproduce.
And you suggest that anything that exhibits these characteristics is considered alive?
In general, yes.
What about fire?
Fire?
Yes. It consumes fuel to produce energy. It grows. It creates offspring. By your definition, is it alive?
Fire is a chemical reaction. You could use the same argument for growing crystals, but obviously we don't consider them alive.
And what about me? I do not grow. I do not reproduce. Yet I am considered to be alive.
That's true, but you are unique.
I wonder if that is so.
So that moment where he just says, you know, it consumes fuel to produce energy, it grows, it creates offsprings. I love that moment with Data and Crusher going back and forth. Fire, incredible, man. What a thing. We really covered a lot of ways to look at the word and its impact and how it's been in Trek. I love this. Bill, what's your take on this one in quality of life? And Data kind of talking about fire.
I think I love it because it's like, you know, what other show besides Star Trek can give you that conversation in such dramatically satisfying, you know, non-cloying kind of ways. Like, it's just, it reminds me of another scene in Dino and Self when Data is in the little classroom with the teacher who's giving her lecture
that would
on
be good
elements.
Too. Yeah, elements. Yeah.
and it's so satisfying for Data to like respond to that and give like the scientifically correct. And I always get to that. And I'm like, only Star Trek can do this. Like, can make this kind of information delivery and conversation so dramatically interesting. And I really think growing up watching it like shaped me. Like, it just, no doubt about it. It did. Watching TNG specifically, especially that was like 5, 6, 7 year old kind of ages, listening to Data talk about things like that. So good. Love it. And I never would have thought of it. I love how abstract and how non-abstract I went with Captain Kirk saying fire and
well, these two are pretty abstract. I love it.
Pretty abstract.
Craig, what's your take on quality of life in this one?
I struggle with quality of life. I think in and of itself, it is another brilliant episode, but as a result, we got peanut hamper.
Yeah, I know.
So I'm not trying to upset you, Jim.
No,
I know,
but it's one of these. This is when the retconning in the future works against me, right? I'm like, God damn peanut hamper. I used to love exocomps. I used to call them the kitties of the galaxy. I loved them, and now peanut hampers just ruined exocomps.
You know, I love that scene, and I love that it's Crusher that he has that scene with, because that's got to be a difficult pairing to write for.
Right.
You know, she's a doctor, he's an android, you know, that he's not in the sick bay for checkups very often. But yeah, it's another pairing that we didn't get to see enough of. It's one of the few scenes, well, one of the very few scenes across the series where we get to see them interacting. And yeah, just again getting to hear that sort of non-human perspective on life. And it's a great conversation. It's a great, well-written, well-acted scene. But you know, I'm sorry, I can't forgive that episode for causing peanut hamper.
Yes, we can. We can, because
we can. Okay.
Because No Small Parts is great. We love No Small Parts. It's just that magic.
Yeah, because you think she's leaving at the end.
Right,
They brought her back.
Yeah. And I will say, Bill, it's funny you mentioned that thine own self scene. I remember watching that and like I'm not like half paying attention, but I just kind of remember all of a sudden there's that scene where the teacher's teaching about the elements, and I wasn't expecting it to go there. And I remember just kind of looking and go, "What the hell did she just say?"
Yeah.
What? Wait. Oh, and then you realize where they're going with it. I distinctly remember that when I was watching that because I was a little bit older. So I love this incredible, amazing topic. So many cool ways. The abstract topics never disappoint. So
let's see what you can do with the secondary systems.
All right, let's get into some secondary systems picks. Bill, you said you had a list of 5. Do you have any secondary systems picks?
I did. I wrote down. I gave it 5 words in a hashtag. I came prepared. It's here it comes, there lie, hashtag Bach. And it's Battle of the Binary Stars. The answer to similar the Star Trek 6 kind of moment from the Klingon perspective. That looms large for me for sure. I love that.
That was cool.
Being in the Discovery mindset when you asked to do this. Certainly probably powered that a little bit. So I wanted to fit that in there somewhere, but that was maybe like right at the tail end of me jotting stuff down as like do I flip something out and put this in kind of situation. So that would be my number one kind of secondary system. But I'll tell you, this conversation really does, these abstract topics really shake loose some crazy things that I wouldn't have thought of other than sitting here talking to you guys. And both of those first round picks number 1 picks that you guys just gave are really eye opening. And now I want to go back and think about it all over again.
I love that one for Battle of the Binary Stars. That's a cool moment for sure. Craig, what is any extra picks on your list?
Yeah, I've got a few. I'm amazed that Generations didn't come up. Time is the fire in which we burn.
Oh, yeah, of course. I don't even have that on my secondary systems. Of course, that's a no-brainer.
And the death of Robert and Renee is just tragic.
We don't talk about that on TrekRanks. We don't talk about that.
I try to think of different ways that you can talk about fire, like fire escapes. There's that hilarious but painful moment in Picard season 2 when Rios gets beamed into thin air beside the fire escape, and then that's
hurts.
the pavement.
That hurts.
I had a Voyager pick. Not a great episode by any stretch of the imagination, but the whole send him back scene at the end of False Prophets, getting burned at the stake.
Yeah.
And the comments that there were pyromaniacs in Deep Space Nine. You've got Kira torching Mullabog's cottage at the end of Progress.
Yeah. That's a great choice.
That was one that I considered Progress. Yeah.
And you've got Lass and Chimera shape-shifting into fire.
That's on my list. Yeah.
That's cool.
Lass's fire is really good.
And the final one I had was Jadzia's entry into Stovacor and Shadows and Symbols. Just that huge fireball at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
But I don't like to talk about Jadzia too much. I'll get upset.
That hurts too. So I had one more from Deep Space Nine. The guy on fire running down the hallway, and if wishes were horses, when Kira is imagining this guy on fire. It's like I have it as a GIF. I use it all the time, but it's like you guys. I don't even know if you remember it, but it's literally a guy in a suit, fully on fire, doing incredible stunt work, running down a corridor at Deep Space Nine. It's insane.
Oh no, that's a great scene. They've all got these funny picks, Rumpelstiltskin and Buck Bocani's nice picks. But it's Kira. Of course, she's got PTSD. Look at what she's been through. Of course, her vision is going to be of something horrible.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
This fireball coming down the hall.
I had the open fire. The guys were cooking in the catwalk from Star Trek Enterprise when they were next to the nacelle. And Trip goes crazy, like, you can't have an open flame in this nacelle. I had where no one has gone before in the corridor, where Picard tells the crewman, put the fire out in your mind, because he's standing there fighting a fire, and the effect is not the best. And then I'm gonna give a special shout out to Daniel Martin, because last week in our episode when I asked for an abstract fire pick, he had an abstract pick like those 2 we just had. He had Mariner's fire inside from the inner fight, which I really thought was a great. That's a great shout out too. And I would have picked Bersalis 3 and the Firestorms, but they were, I think, my top pick in top 5 weather-related incidents back on episode 167. So I love those firestorms. Anyway, lots of ways to talk about fire. Fantastic topic. Let's get into our.
Can I throw one more?
Oh yeah, one more. Let's do it.
What about the fire within you when somebody gives author a B on Twitter?
Oh my God. What were you doing? Bill, what are you doing?
It's an inflammatory horror novel.
It's garbage, Bill.
I thought this was TrekRanks and there were no wrong answers.
Oh my God, it's the worst. I'm going to have to cut this out because there are no wrong answers on TrekRanks. There are wrong answers when I'm on Twitter and I'm talking
Outside
to
of
you guys.
TrekRanks.
There are definitely wrong answers. Oh God, Arthur. All right, I'm going to keep this in because you guys know I love all my Star Trek. All right, here we go. Regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
All right, Bill and Craig, we're going to recap your picks. Bill, run down your 5.
So my number 5 is the campfire scene in Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. My number 4 is the small green plasma fire in the shuttle or the cargo bay in Disaster, TNG. My number 3 would be the big green plasma fire on the outside of the NX-01's hull in The Forgotten. My number 2 is Janeway rushing into the deflector control room in Year of Hell Part 2, which is on fire. And my number 1 is Captain Kirk's fire to do away with General Chang in Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
All right, so you had 2 from TOS, 1 from TNG, Enterprise, and Voyager, and you had 2 films. And you said you called out Year of Hell Part 2, but I'm going to give you the 2-part of their Year of Hell. So you had 8 hours of Trek picked, which we love.
Heck yeah.
And Craig, oh my God, I can't wait to get to yours. So do your 5, Craig.
Okay, so number 5 was the campfire scenes in The Final Frontier. Number 4 was the cliffhanger ending of Best of Both Worlds. At number 3, we had What You Leave Behind and the Death of Kai Wynn. At number 2, we had Janeway going into deflector control and the scene with the Doctor afterwards in Year of Hell. And number 1 was Benny Russell getting fired in Far Beyond the Stars.
Amazing for number 1 pick. So you had 2 from Deep Space Nine and then 1 each from TOS, TNG, and Voyager. And you had 1 film, but you also had What We Leave Behind and then 2 two-parters. So you had 9 hours of Trek, man. That's about as good as you can get in 5 picks. Amazing. All right, and my 5 picks, I had like these smaller picks. So I went with number 5, Facets, the Jintara, Deep Space Nine. And then from Deep Space Nine, Shakar, the Duranya, the Lamp of the Dead. Number 3 was from TNG, Rightful Heir, and the Kahless Vision Quest from Worf. Number 2 was Quark on Fire in the Jem'Hadar, Deep Space Nine. And number 1, The Quality of Life and Data, discussing fire as life from TNG. So I did not spread it around. I had 3 from Deep Space Nine and 2 from TNG. I rarely do that. That was something that just came up. Okay, let's get into some stats here because we got a really good breakdown of some numbers. So first off, we had 2 duplicates, which sounds about right. And then I tried to break down the types of fire. So there was no explosions, like no big explosions. So I thought that was interesting. I thought there might be like something along those lines. There was 2 commands to fire. There was 2 really abstract picks, the ones we just talked about with Benny getting fired and talking about fire as life. And then there was 5 controlled fires, which were mostly my picks, 3 of them. And then for like a chemical fire or out of control fire or like something a little bit supernatural like the fire caves, there were 6 picks like that. That's our fiery breakdown. And then by series, there was nothing in my right column of all the new Trek. So we were in Legacy series only. 1 from Enterprise, 2 from Voyager, 3 from TOS, and they were all films, and then 4 from TNG and 5 from Deep Space Nine. So definitely classic Legacy Trek heavy here. incredible breakdown, awesome conversation. Let's initiate a temporal inversion because it's time to hear from you.
Initiate temporal inversion.
Initiating.
And for this week's temporal inversion, we are going back to episode 176 and our top 5 episodes that feel like TNG. We got a ton of great feedback on that one. So I'm going to read an entire list here from Nathan Royster, who's on B-Sky at Nathan Royster. And his prime directive is TNG is deliberative and collaborative. So I like this. So number 5, teamwork lessons in Deadly Menagerie, hashtag, and Riker plot. And he picked Lower Decks Kayshawn, his eyes open, and correlated it with the most toys from TNG. I love that. And number 4, he had Loxana Troy shares vulnerable moment, hashtag puppy love, Deep Space Nine, The Forsaken, and he relates that to Cost of Living from TNG. Number 3, episodes that feel like TNG, Space Threat actually needs care, hashtag sex appeal. Voyager's Elogium, correlating to Galaxy's Child, which actually makes a lot of sense.
I agree with that.
Really good
Sure,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a great one. I don't think I ever thought of that. And then number 2, perceived threat is attempted communication, hashtag seek out new life. Strange New Worlds Lost in Translation, correlating to evolution. Oh, that's cool. I love Lost in Translation.
You do.
Underrated. Oh my God, it's so good. And then I love his number 1, so this is really good. And this one I definitely thought of. Competent team escapes spatial anomaly, hashtag, and exploring artificial intelligence. This is stormy weather from Discovery related to Where Silence Has Lease, which there's a lot to tie in there with those two. I love that list. That was a great topic. I wasn't sure how that one was going to work, but episode 176. All right. Well, so those picks more than enough to clear ourselves from this week's temporal inversion. So as always, keep your lists coming to me so I can retweet them. But we also want to hear from you. So put together your own list of abstract fire or a list from any of our past shows. Give us a call at the Tricorder Transmission at 609-512-5527. Or you can just contact me on DM, on Twitter. We can connect that way if you just want to record something and send it over. So hopefully we'll hear from you so you can be featured on the next episode of TrekRanks. And on the next episode of TrekRanks, we are doing a good one. This is going to be a fun one. This is simply the top 5 love letters to Star Trek. Can't believe we've never really done that topic before. It just hit me the other day. This one is going to be awesome. I cannot wait to work on that list. So Bill and Craig, real simple. What's that one thing or episode that you think is a love letter to Trek? What do you got, Bill?
I'm tempted to say 09.
That's a good one.
That comes to mind as sort of.
Don't rattle off like 10 because
no, okay, yeah. I'll go
Star Trek 09 is great. That's a
Star
good
Trek
one.
09. Yeah,
that is a love letter to Trek. I love that. Okay, Craig, what do you got?
I'm going to go with Bounty in Picard season 3, the Fleet Museum.
I love it so. I love it. I love it. And by the way, it's the Bounty. Let's get
the Bounty.
You said Bounty, and I went to Bounty.
That's Paul and Heat.
Yeah, okay. The Bounty is an absolute love letter to Trek. Oh my God, that scene with Seven talking about Voyager going further than anybody else. Oh my God, I love it. Incredible. All right, that is going to be an awesome topic.
Channel closed. Reset. Subspace communications. Scrambler code Riker 1.
Scrambler code Riker 1 acknowledged. All right, we're going to close this episode out with a huge thanks to Bill Mann and Craig Main. Incredible job, you guys. Any final Trek Scrambler codes either you want to relay before we depart? Bill.
Yeah. Thank you for having me back for the 12th time.
Yep.
These are always really great conversations. You put it perfectly right at the beginning. This is just a gateway into having a really fun conversation with 2 or 3 other folks who love Star Trek the way I do, and this was no exception. Thank you, Jim and Craig. This was a lot of fun.
Way too much fun. Craig, you killed it. First time. That was awesome. Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you so much for making me feel so welcome. I know I'm in the presence of Trek Twitter royalty. I had a great time. First podcasting experience. I had so much fun. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, appreciate you and all the feedback we've gotten from you over the years. So I'm super glad to finally get you on. Great job. All right. And thanks everyone for engaging with us here on episode 182 of the TrekRanks podcast. As always, I want to close by saying I'm looking forward to standing with you again here in this place where I belong.
I'm on fire! Ah! I'm on fire!
Are you all right?
No, I am not all right. My ears itch, my nose is running, I'm eating foreign bugs. Now look at me. 1 minute I'm trying to pick a couple of bugs out of that jumbo wassup pot. The next thing I know, whoosh!
Just want to remind everyone again that the entire TrekRanks catalog is available for you to download and listen to at TrekRanks.com and on your podcast player of choice. Our episodes never get carbon dated, so check out the topics you've missed and maybe just want to listen to again over at TrekRanks.com. And a reminder to check out our friends 5-Year Mission at 5yearmission.net. They're writing a song for every episode of Star Trek, and you won't believe how great their music is. They also have a podcast at the Trek Geeks Network, so seek them out. You won't regret it.
Gonna sit there and pluck that thing, or are you gonna place it? Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, 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 your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. Merrily, 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 gently down the stream.